Hello, everyone. Let me know if you have my audio so we could start answering some questions. I'm going to be answering the Patreon questions. If you want to be a Patreon, link in the description. You could be a patron, and then you could post your questions on Patreon a day ahead. What I do is I post a link to the stream a day ahead of time. Me or Susanna will post it there, and you guys could comment under the post in Patreon, your questions, and you can see like we have the questions here. But also, once I'm done with the Patreon questions, I'll go to the live chat questions as well. But let me know right now if you have my audio. Okay, Secular Arts is saying everyone knows that Q&A is the best part of a presentation. You see, Armin, he has given you a whole show of a Q&A. Alhamdulillah. That's pretty good. Okay, cool. Oh, Susanna today had some obligations, so she wouldn't be able to do the Q&A today, but I think she will be able to do it next week. Anyways, I think I got all the questions. Cool. So let me know. Is the audio okay? Hey, D. Hi, Higgs boson. Hi, secularity. Hi, oxymoron. Everyone in the live chat. Everyone's here. Audio. Okay. Music guy is confirming that the audio is good. Guys, please make sure that you like the stream, just like the video right now before we get started, so that our channel grows a little bit. I am going to start the questions as they come in, if I notice them. But first we have to start with the Patreon questions. Okay. All right. So first Patreon question. Secular Sakai is saying, haven't heard much discussion on animism lately. Many religions will still incorporate it even today, especially tribal ones, as a term that covers countless drastically different beliefs across many cultures throughout history. Do you believe it is odd when people just refer to someone as animist? Should they be more specific? I mean, there's so many, given the major religions, animism, totemism, and I don't know, shamanism, they're just a small percentage of people who believe in that kind of stuff that it makes sense for you to group them all together. I mean, I know, by the way, they all had a major influence on our religions today. Um, the way okay, this is such a simplistic version of it, but the way I try to put totemism and animism and shamanism separate from each other is to understand, just simplify it by saying totemism is when things in nature, you have a totem of it and you like make it special, okay? Especially plants and animals. Okay, plants and animals. You make a totem out of it. That's a significant part of nature, and I'm gonna worship the crap out of it. That's totemism, I think. Okay, animism is when things that are you go beyond that, and you're like, it's not just plants and animals. Are you stupid? It's plants and animals. The river has a spirit and it moves things. Okay, everything. The wind has the wind has a spirit, the river has a spirit, the mountain has a spirit. I think that's animism. I might be completely wrong about this. Tell me if that's a good summary of it. Okay, so you go beyond plants and animals and you see life in goddamn everything. Okay, that nail in the wall, it has a goddamn spirit. Okay, it's alive. Everything is, my poop is alive. Okay, everything is alive. Okay, that's what I see as animism. Okay, and then shamanism is when people become special and have connections to higher powers and do stuff, special stuff. Okay, all of a sudden there's certain so you have totemism and then animism, and all of a sudden there's certain humans that are connected to things and they are special and they have superpowers and they could do things on your behalf to make nature do things for you. Okay, and shamanism is, and I think it was in this order. First we had mostly totemism, and then we have animism, and then we have shamanism. I read about these like a long time ago. I don't know if this is accurate. Okay, wait, and then let me know, correct me if I'm wrong about any of this. Okay, and then yes, that's funny. And the shamanism is how we got our modern religions. Not moderns, I'm talking like 10,000 years. Like this stuff is prehistory. Okay, prehistory, and now we still have some of it left, like especially tribal stuff. But shamanism is what brought in what we recognize as organized religion, because it introduced the concept of priests and godmen. Okay, shamans were the earliest form of people that were doing God's or nature's bidding, you know, on behalf of the whoever could pay them, right? So that introduced that whole world of shamanism, introduced it opened the door to hierarchy, and like, oh, these are special people, they have connections to the divine, right? So it was perfect timing, because civilization, like city states, were right around the corner. And you needed a special class of people to create hierarchy, and that was perfect timing. And organized religions got that, went from shamanism to priests, and I don't know, now we have imams and all kinds of stuff, right? Secularity is like, "Pff, thanks a lot, shamans." But yeah, I'm assuming that there's. I'm not the right person to ask. I'm assuming when it comes to any of these, totemism, shamanism, or animism, there's a whole bunch of varieties, a lot of details that to whoever studies it, for us to look at it all as the same thing, it seems like ridiculous. I mean, I don't think it's a category. It's a category, and I think it's fair for, like, for example, the term organized religion is also a category of a whole bunch of things that are very different from each other, but it doesn't mean that we can't categorize it together. I think when it comes to religion, the weirdest category that we put things in is paganism, right? Because paganism just means everything that is not Abrahamic, and they don't pay there's other than not being Abrahamic, they don't have much in common for them to at least, like, when you call something animist, there's something that it has a characteristic that it shares with all other animist beliefs, right? But when you call something pagan, like, there's no shared, other than not being Abrahamic, there's nothing shared in the ideology that puts them close together, right? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, paganism is just the weirdest category, but I don't think, I think it's fair to call certain things animism. Like, you could see what is, even if they are very different, you could see what is the shared characteristic that makes them animist. Okay, I'm seeing more questions coming in. I'm gonna start them so that I could read them after I'm done with the Patreon question. Oh, by the way, guys, whoever is a YouTube member, once I'm done with the Patreon questions, I'm gonna post a link to this for you to be able to come up and talk to me live on air if you're interested in that. So that would be only available to YouTube members. Secular Sakai is saying paganism is a bit of a misnomer. It's used synonymously with polytheists, even for religions that were never pagan. Mm, no, I think no. It doesn't have to. I don't think pagan is just synonymous with polytheists. I mean, don't isn't Buddhist also considered a pagan religion? I think Buddhism will be considered pagan as well, and that's not a polytheistic. I mean, technically, sometimes it is, sometimes it does. Okay, it depends on your branch of Buddhism. They do have their own gods. Okay, let's go to the next patron question. What is this one? Oh, this question doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. I have to read it from. Guys, keep your questions a little bit. Okay, so Secular Sakai is saying the freedom of Russia Legion is a fighting force of the Ukrainian armed forces, composed entirely of Russian dissidents who seek to one day overthrow Putin and bring real liberal democracy in Russia. Well, good luck with that. The Legion has officially adopted the anti-war white, blue, white flag. Oh, that's nice. For people who don't know, the white, blue, white flag is the Russian flag by removing the red. I'm assuming they're saying that they're removing the blood, so they're like anti-war version of the Russian flag. So it's like Okay, so it's a white, blue, white flag as one of their symbols. What is your opinion on the effects this will have on international and domestic perceptions of the flag now that it is worn on the uniforms of armed anti-Kremlin Russian revolutionaries? I don't know how big of a deal this legion is. Like, how big are they? Are they significant? Are they famous? I think the flag itself has been very welcomed by a lot of people. Because I like the flag because it's Russian, right? It's a Russian thing. It's made by Russians for Russians, and I think like it's important right now to make sure the world understand that the war is not with the Russian people. So having Russian people be anti-Kremlin at this moment, highlighting that has a lot of utility to make sure that we discourage anti-Russian racism just because of what Putin is doing. Okay. Um, so I don't know. I don't want to endorse this legion because I don't know. Like maybe I didn't. Maybe I say today that they're good, and then tomorrow I realize that they're war criminals or something like that. So I don't know. I don't want to put my endorsement behind something that I haven't looked into that much. But it sounds encouraging. Secular Sakai saying only a few hundred members or so far. Okay, but I don't know. I think like if they're on the right side and they're fighting for democracy and they're Russian, they might be useful for highlighting as a way to fight any form of anti-Russian bigotry, right? They're anti-Kremlin, that's good. They're for democracy, that's good. So, and they're Russian, so that's so all of that. I think it might be good. It might be unless they have something in their record that might be like horrible. It seems like it's a useful thing to highlight as a way to fight bigotry. Okay, I'm seeing more questions. Oh my god, so many questions coming in. Okay, so I'm going to. By the way, if you're a YouTube member, again, I remind you that after I'm done with the questions, I'm going to post a link for you to be able to come up and ask your questions live on air if you're interested in that. Okay, let me actually. I forgot to put the live stream on my phone so I could see you guys on my phone. See, this is what happens when Susie's not here. Everything is confusing. Okay. Cool. Great. Now I have everything. All right. Let's go to the next question. Okay, Armin, do you feel like you don't get enough pushback or challenges to your positions at times in some of your discussions on Atheist Republic? Are there times you wish there were more structured debates on top of the discussions? Yes, I need a proper challenge. I feel like, especially on the Persian side, anywhere, like I feel like I haven't been pushed that, that much recently. The greatest push I get, the greatest challenges I get is privately with Susanna challenges me on something. She's like very smart and she's very knowledgeable. So, but other than Susanna, like publicly live on air, I feel like there's not that much of a pushback against the things I'm saying. Yeah, it's just Susanna mostly. So, yeah, I wish I could find some people that I have disagreements with that they could come and debate me and push me. But yeah, nowhere. I haven't found anywhere. Okay. Questions from Susie. So Susie is not here, but she's sending her questions. Okay, let me see. There's more questions. Wait. Oxymoron has a comment. I will star it so I could read it later. Guys, there's so many questions. Okay, I need to answer faster so I could get to these questions. Okay, cool. Questions from Susie. What do you think about yesterday's can I say this on YouTube? Okay, killing of Al Jazeera. Okay, let me read it again. What do you think about yesterday's killing of Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh? Okay, I know Shireen. I know her first name. Her last name is hard to read. By Israeli forces in the West Bank. She was very obviously identified as press when she was shot in the head. I still can't get over how the AP and Al Jazeera headquarters in Gaza were bombed to rubble last year. How will Israel be held responsible for their attacks on free press? I don't think they will. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, it's so disgusting how Israel's violations of human rights. First of all, right now we're applying Occam's razor, and there's always a chance that, I don't know, it was someone else that shot her, but it doesn't seem likely. Like, it seemed like, but in case a news comes out and this is wrong, I just want to put it on record that I acknowledge that everything could be different than what being reported on. But it seems like very unlikely. It seems like it seems like it's very close to certain that it was the Israeli forces. Okay, but we have to be skeptical. Um, but there's no accountability for Israeli forces. Like, it just seems like they feel it. They give you this impression that that they don't that they feel like they don't have to be, that they don't have to tell you anything, that they're not answerable to anybody, and that they're above all of this, that they're justified in doing whatever they want. And even if they do an oopsie once in a while, like, yeah, well, this is what we what yeah, we're defending ourselves. It's just like that. I just think like Israel um can't pretend, like a lot of people pretend like Israel is one of these civilized, it keeps, people keep comparing it to the countries around the region, and like when you compare it to that, like, okay, sure, you're above that when it comes to, I don't know, democracy and secularism and, I don't know, gay rights and stuff like that, but you're not at all in the league of other countries, like when it comes to being held responsible for human rights violations or just any form of accountability for what you do. They just completely shrug it off. um it's just so disgusting. I don't know. It's not just the fact that they do just like kill journalists or innocent people. It's just, it's also the after, the ideas, like the feeling that they give you, the lack of any attempt of explanation, or at least even the image of showing an attempt that they're trying to fix things or that they even care about it. Is it like, and they not only they don't come and apologize or think this was a mistake and it's going to be, people are going to be held accountable. They do the opposite. They go out of their way to try to protect the people who are doing these violations, and they're also coming at you like as if they're being wrong for, because you're asking them questions. They act like oppressed because the world is like, why did you do that? And they're like, oh my god, we're being oppressed again. Israel is being oppressed again because people are like, hey, what the hell happened here? It's just, I don't know, it's just so vile and disgusting. The arrogance of it, the arrogance and the way they shrug it off, the way that they think that you don't even have a right to question them. I don't know. I just hope that, Israel is a great country, and in Israel needs to be liberated from a lot of these politicians. Okay. And I hope that more of the world, you know, not moving in the direction where they are opposed to this constant excuses that the international, United States and some other countries make for Israel and constantly defend them no matter what they do. I think we're moving away from that. And I want the Israeli government to see that it's going to eventually start paying a price for not caring about abiding by certain standards, because so far they have been they've noticed that they don't pay a price for it. So of course they're going to keep doing it. I just hope that now we slowly, at least, we get to a place where it starts to sting. Like they actually do pay a price for it, and I think some people are noticing that the world is shifting. However, Israel, I don't know if that's going to encourage them to finally start caring about certain standards, or maybe just make them rely on some other countries, on unity with other countries that don't care about these standards. Are we going to push Israel into the arms of, I don't know, relying on their unity less with the United States because there's finally a pushback, or less with the Western European countries and more towards, I don't know, China, Saudi Arabia, and stuff like that? I mean, the replacement is not going to be at all significant, so I still hope they feel the pressure. Yeah, Norse mythology is saying it's only two reasons: either accidentally or on purpose. Either way, whether it was an accidental shot or on purpose, there is very limited accountability. Either way, we don't know. Here's the thing: we don't know if it was on purpose or accidental, because there's no transparent investigation. They're like, we don't have to show you anything. We don't have to show you crap. And even at times where they do show you that, okay, fine, we have footage, like there's no way, that we could sweep this under the rug, they go out of their way to protect the criminals who committed that, as a way to signal to other IDF members that don't be scared, because we got you. You're a boy. We got you. You shot a journalist. We got you. Don't, I don't know. Mm, okay. Next patron question. Who's this from? Wait, I think we missed one patron question that I didn't star. Hold on. Yeah, I think I missed one patron question from secular, from Higgs boson. I need to repost that. One second. There we go. So this is from a question from one of our patrons, Higgs boson. The question is: will Russia invade Finland if they join NATO? I can't imagine Susanna Marine, is that partying in a club while Russian troops capture I always have a problem pronouncing the city. Helsinki. Oh, I did it. Okay. So I don't think so. I mean, we don't know. Like Putin, we didn't think Putin is going to attack Ukraine, but he did. So if I say I don't think so, you have to take that with a grain of salt. But but it would be insane for Putin to attack Finland while they're trying to join NATO. And I think the probability of that has been lowered significantly because of the bad performance of Russia in Ukraine. I mean, if you can't take over Ukraine, what are your chances against a country like Finland, where even though they're not part of NATO yet, they're a lot closer to NATO member countries when it comes to commitment of defense, right? And the good thing is that both United Kingdom and United States have promised both Finland and Sweden that they're going to cover them while they're going through this application process, right? So I think once you apply for NATO, I think Finland's the joining process will take about a year. I don't. I think that's what I heard. Like during this year, it's going to be one reason why people don't join NATO is because they're worried, like, okay, well, I'm joining NATO and I'm waiting to be approved, that is the time that I might get attacked, because I might have triggered Russia to attacking me now, because of the application triggers them to like, okay, we're gonna have to react, so we're gonna attack you, and I'm not part of NATO yet, so they know that I'm defenseless and I'm not gonna get the same level of protection as other NATO members. So this is the worry that this is a this time gap might be not only stopping Russia from attacking me, it's going to encourage Russia to attack me. Okay, so to avoid that from happening, United States and United Kingdom will come in and say like, okay, join NATO, and we will officially come into an agreement that we are bound to protect you during this application process or something like that. Okay, and that would like I feel like okay, thank you so much. So now I could apply it. I could join NATO, and this is going to remove the motivations from Russia to attack me during this 1 year period. Right? You enter a pact with UK and United States. So I think it's a good thing. I think get Finland to join, get Sweden to join, because Russia needs to. The Russian government needs to everything they try to do by attacking Ukraine needs to backfire. NATO needs to become a lot more powerful and bigger and more significant. So anything that what Putin did does not become precedent for other countries to do the same thing. It needs to backfire. Secular Sakai is saying Putin probably isn't insane enough to attempt an attack on Finland and start two fronts on the Russian border. The thing with Putin is that so in other countries we have insane politicians, but because instead of relying on certain politicians, we're relying on a system, those insane politicians will not be able to just do all the insane things they want to do. The problem with Russia is that Putin can do whatever he wants to do. So if he is insane, then all those, checks and balances will not be there to stop him. Like insane politicians is not something that is abnormal. A lot of politicians are insane. Okay, sometimes to get that to that level of power, you have to be somewhat insane to be able to get there. Okay, but again, that's why the system is more important than the individual. But I don't think Putin is insane. But I do think that if he's not insane, it might be beneficial for him to sometimes act like he is insane. In game theory, it's called the madman. I don't know, what is it called? The madman theory game. So yeah, the madman theory. Oh, I said it correctly. The madman theory will, if it means that even if you're sane, if people get the impression that you might be mad, then they will see certain moves by you as possible that they wouldn't have assumed for other people, and they would have to be a lot more cautious around when they decide what moves they make, because anything is possible from on your end, right? So Putin might be playing that game. He might be not a madman, but acting like a madman, so that you think that, because, like, for example, if Putin is not a madman, then he would never use nukes, right? Because that would be the end of everything. But he might want to pretend like he's a madman, so you see that as a possibility, so that you don't upset him. Yeah. So, anyways, that's there's that. Yeah, so secular right is saying, yeah, working with non-rational actors always makes the political calculations much harder. Exactly. Okay, so El Hakim is saying, I like how Armin spins lies and makes up stuff. This theory or that theory. Well, I didn't make up this theory. That's literally it's literally a theory right here. Like, maybe the madman theory is a political theory commonly associated with U.S. President Richard Nixon's foreign policy. Nixon and his administration tried to make the leaders of hostile communist bloc nations think he was irrational and volatile. According to the theory, those leaders would then avoid provoking the United States, fearing an unpredictable American response. So Yeah, I didn't make that up. I don't know what you're talking about. You could go look that up yourself. Okay, so here's another question by our patrons. So it says, is China's political obsession with taking over Taiwan indicating that China is having problems internally? Because often leaders divert citizens' attention to an external political cause when they're having internal issues. Mm, I mean, yes and no. Yes, as in, yeah, that's always useful. It's not just I mean, I feel like China uses United States as an excuse, as this foreign enemy, to unite people, to rally. Yeah, so yeah, this is common. Like I've seen this a lot, especially with Islamic Republic of Iran. I see that with Israel. I see that with United States itself. United States itself uses that tactic a lot, and China does that as well. But it's not just Taiwan, it's any foreign. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, China doesn't look at Taiwan as a foreign threat, because China looks at Taiwan as China. So yeah, so divert attention to an external political cause. Okay, yeah, so not a foreign threat, but it looks at United States. It brings attention to United States as a foreign threat to divert attention away from, like, oh, we're being attacked. Unite the Chinese against this foreign threat, and maybe they look at Taiwan as this excuse that they use, Western countries try to use to be like, no, this is ours, and they're coming for a piece of our country, so this is why, and we need to be united against this. Uh, Instead of having infighting within country, we all need to be united against this foreign threat. Okay, but the reason why I say yes and no is because Taiwan, this is not a recent thing. Like, the obsession with Taiwan, the way your question is phrased, it makes it seem like this is recent. This has been an ongoing thing, and the tension goes up and down, has been going on for a while, right? um so this obsession has been there for decades. It's not as it's I don't know if you want to use it as an indication that something is going wrong, and something has been going wrong for a while as well. mm, Again, China is having problems. I mean, you don't need to look at this as a indicator that things are going wrong in China internally, because we have better indicators right now that China is having problems internally. Like, again, your question makes it seem like, first of all, I think it's wrong because it makes it seem like this obsession is new, and second, the question, I think, is wrong because it makes it seem like we don't have. It's obvious, like we have clear and transparent indicators that there's a there's a real estate bubble and multiple other bubbles, right? There's a train, the railway bubble. There's a whole bunch of different bubbles, economic bubbles happening in China at the same time. There's a political revenge from the Shanghai gang happening right now, especially with this COVID things, probably. So there's a political retaliation going on. There's a whole bunch of there's a failure of the wolf warrior diplomacy that is happening, and all of this are openly and transparently out there for the world to see. So you don't need this metric to see that. Oh, I already asked this question. Okay, good. Another patron question says, if Trump was president, is there a chance he'd have started a nuclear World War III with Russia? I know he seems friendly with Putin, Russia, but it takes very less to get him angry. He'll definitely nuke Russia if Putin gets under his skin. Um, First of all, when you say, is there a chance? I mean, the answer to that is always yes, because there's always a chance for anything. But the question shouldn't be, is it a chance? The question should be like, is it likely? Okay. Because I don't know, there's a chance that tomorrow at 4 o'clock, the planet Earth is going to be invaded by aliens, right? Tomorrow, 4 p.m. 2 minutes past 4 p.m. Is it a chance? Yes, there's a chance. So the question should be, is it likely? That's a more important question, right? And I don't think World War III is likely, especially because your question also makes it seem like it would happen from the U.S. side, right? There's a lot more checks and balances from the U.S. side for anybody wanting to start World War III. I think it would have been stopped. I know the president has access to the nukes and the codes and everything, but I think that that form of escalation, if it was going to happen from the United States, it would have been stopped by some other people. I don't think the president in the United States is that much of a say as like Putin might have on his side. So no, I don't think so. Even if he got angry, even if he woke up one day and he said, "I want to nuke Kremlin," I think there would be some people who would have stopped him. This is what's good about the United States relative to a country like Russia. Okay. Wait, what is this question? Okay, I think this is a question by Oxymoron. The question is, what was reason Islamic? What is this question? What was the? I think it's saying, what was the reason for Islam and Christianity wildfire in history? I don't know what this means. Hold on, let me read the rest of the question to see if I understand it. How differently did Islam and Christianity affect communities' psyche differently? Okay, what socioeconomic and social culture factors favored Islam more in parts of the world compared to Christianity or communism or other way around? Okay, I am having a hard time understanding this question, but I think this question has a million different answers depending on the time and the location you're talking about. Like the way Islam affected people and Christianity affected people where exactly and when exactly. And the socioeconomic and social culture factors, it's also is so multifactorial that I don't think that answering a question does it justice. Like the question that you're asking is something that you could literally write multiple libraries about depending on the specific place. Like, are you talking about in Iran during 1800s or in Indonesia during the, I don't know, 1900s, right? And so it really depends. Each one of them has, let me see if oxymoron is clarifying. Yeah, so just know that there's no simple answer to this question. If you want to clarify, if you want to come up, because you're a YouTube member, so you could come up and ask your question on air if you're interested in that. Okay, so here's a question that I actually don't know. Saying, are Qatar and Turkey relationships soar over Qatar investing in a business deal in Cyprus? I don't know. Actually, I knew that yeah, okay. So I don't know, but I'm gonna guess that because Turkey doesn't recognize Cyprus as a country, does it? does Turkey does Turkey recognize Cyprus? Turkey does not recognize the government of the Republic of Cyprus. I was correct, stating that the republic, okay, doesn't recognize the government. Um, okay, good. Okay, so I was kind of right about that, and I think maybe okay. So Qatar and Turkey are supposed to be closer with each other. So if Qatar comes and does a deal with a government that Turkey doesn't that is in conflict with, I bet Turkey would be upset about it. So let me actually. So that's my guess. Turkey, Qatar, Cyprus. Let me see what's happening here. So I don't know about this. Okay, so yeah, Exxon Mobil apparently. No, that was older. That was last year. Yeah, I don't know about this. Um, I what I do know is Turkey is not in any position right now to be upset with anybody, given their economy going down the toilet, and I think that's what is leading them to be a lot more friendly with a whole bunch of countries that they used to be hostile over, because they're being in desperate need for international help right now. I think this is the reason why Turkey right now is like, "Hey, Israel, can we ignore all the fights that we have had?" Because Turkey was also competing with Iran and acting because given all these Arab countries be getting closer and closer to Israel, Iran and Turkey were stepping up to show to the Islamic world that they're the true anti-Israel countries. But given how Turkey's desperation for international help for their economy, I think Turkey is like, you know what, screw it, Israel, let's be buddies again, right? So that leaves Iran as the main enemy of Israel. There's no, I mean, Turkey has also already has a lot of trade relationship with Israel, anyways, even though they were pretending to be enemies of Israel. But I just don't know if they could, like, what are they gonna do right now? Like, Turkey is like, what are you gonna do? Like, you're upset with Qatar, and what are you gonna do about it? Yeah, and also here's another thing. Exactly, Turkey dropped the Khashoggi case for Saudi Arabia. Why do you think they dropped it? They're desperate. They can't right now. They can't pick fights with anybody. They can't pick fights with Saudi Arabia. They can't pick fights with Iran as much. They can't pick fights with Israel. They have to just like they have to be a little more agreeable with people with countries in the region. So I think like I don't know about this question. I don't know how upset they are there with Qatar. I just don't know how significant it's going to be and what they're going to do about it. Okay, so here's the last Patreon question, and then I'm going to go to the live chat questions. What's the reason that post 14th century Europe became relatively enlightened? The faith churches began fading, and scientific temperament was improving, and people started having more autonomy in political decisions, more checks and balances on monarchs. I think there's multiple reasons. Okay, so um, three reasons I've noticed people mention is, I would say, okay, reintroduction to an the philosophical age of Europe, an increase in wealth and geography. Okay, so I think let's go. I don't know how significant this one is. I think through the Europe was so Europe went through what some people refer to as the Dark Ages, where faith and religion was in charge, but at so and people experience the failure of that, uh, but also through the Renaissance that happened through the Arab regions, right? Which a lot of people call the golden age of Islam. I don't. I refer to it as the golden age of Arabs and Persians because it was because of Islam that they had the golden age. A lot of philosophical and scientific work was brought back to surface, through a lot of works of translations and also new additional work that was added to that. But this rediscovery of ancient philosophy from Europe through Arabic translations eventually was leaked into Europe, and Europe was like, oh, Europe was reintroduced to its own history through Arabic translations. And they were like, we used to do rationality a lot more than before, like more than now. And they were like, a lot of people through discovering that, it opened the door to going back to that, right? So some people could argue that the Renaissance in Europe is partly owed to the golden age of Arabs and Persians and them discovering their own past through those translations, right? Another thing is that when an increase in wealth, so you know, private ownership and private property being respected and an increase in trade led to a huge surge in wealth in Europe. And when wealth increases, you climb the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and people start demanding things beyond just filling their belly and having a place to sleep. And that would become the demands will go to it increases the relative power of the people relative to the people who rule over them, right? So that relative power increases in favor of the people when they're more wealthy, and people start demanding more autonomy and rights and a whole bunch of stuff, right? And also when you have more wealth in certain places, more people, there's room for more people to stop working in the fields or having other jobs and actually spend time doing science and philosophy, right? Because you're rich enough for you to be able to afford not everybody doing work that requires labor. So just like in the Arab Empire, when they became wealthy, they started having enough resources to spend time on poetry, art, science, and philosophy. In Europe also, when they became wealthy enough, they managed to dedicate a lot of their time and energy not on faith and religion, but on science and philosophy and stuff like that, right? Because faith is mostly has a control utility, right? The controlling of the masses. But I don't know, science, art, and technology is kind of the opposite. It basically shifts the power towards the people relative to the rulers. So, you know, faith has a centralization effect on power. Science and technology has a decentralization effect on power, because through science and technology, when it comes to a lower part of the hierarchy manages to become wealthy and have autonomy and have relative wealth through becoming rich and having economic power, and that economic power leads to political power compared to the people who are ruling it. Okay, so that's the second element. And the third element is the geographical nature of Europe has always made it a place where tyranny is difficult to do. So you see, like, even the earliest forms of democracy usually happened in Europe, and you had Greek democracy, Roman democracy, they had the Senate. I mean, they still went back to democracy and tyranny, like they kept fluctuating toward that, but it's harder in Europe to hold tyrants because of the nature of the land. Makes it, like if you look at in the Middle East or in China, the land is so accessible for rulers to just control, right? There's not that much, and even like, for example, even in Iran, where there's or in other places in the Middle East, the places where it's harder for you to send troops to, those are where your opposition usually stays, like deep in the mountains. Like, you control a whole bunch of land, but in the mountains the opposition manages to find a safe haven where it's harder for you to defeat them, right? Or like in or somewhere in the jungles or whatever, like you control a vast area of accessible land, but that place is like, oh, that place is always hard to control, right? Well, that place that is always hard to control for tyrants in, I don't know, in many places in Asia, Europe is mostly that so in Asia, some places are like that for tyrants to control, but there's also whole vast areas where they can control with no problem. But a higher percentage of Europe looks like those difficult places for tyrants to control, right? So that's why it makes it a better place, an easier place for democracy to grow, because the relative power of the people towards the rulers the balance would be a little bit more in favor of the people, because kings, I mean, even at the time of the kings, there was all these feudal lords where each one had their own region. Not at no time any of them could control vast areas of it. And even when at sometimes a king or a ruler managed to control a vast area, it was eventually because of the economic power of the empire or the nation that managed to make the ruler so rich that it controlled that area through economic power, right? But then because it became a tyrant, and tyranny is not good for trade, it keeps cycling between tyranny and democracy, back and forth. That pendulum happens more in Europe than in other places, right? So the difficulty of controlling the vast areas is also helps Europe to become a better bastion for democracy. Does that make sense? Yeah. So Shakib is saying Shakib is saying even in India, north is plain and can easily be invaded. This is why Mughals were able to get it so easily, and also made capital Delhi, which is unusual, as the capital are mostly on coast. Okay. Oh, and wait, were able to get it so easily, and also made capital Delhi, which is unusual as capital. Okay, cool. Oh, Higgs boson saying nice. Okay, thank you, Higgs boson. Our patron is happy with my answer. That's pretty good. All right, let's go to the live chat questions. And I'm just going to answer 13 live chat questions and then post the link. Wait, I'm just going to post the link right now in case anybody wants to come up. So under the community tab of the Atheist Republic YouTube channel, I'm going to post the link. Ask your question. I can spell. All right, so this is going to be on the community tab, but it's only going to be available to YouTube members to be able to see. That's not how you spell questions. Okay, there you go. Fix it. Posted. But yeah. Okay, so no more questions in the live chat. I already have 13 questions highlighted. Mustafa saying, I'm dating a girl who is a practicing Hindu, loves me, knowing that I'm an ex-Muslim atheist. Her parents, from what I heard, not. Not what? Not as in they don't love you, or not as in they're not practicing Hindu? I haven't met them yet, so how should I handle meeting them? Okay, yeah. It really depends on where you are. Are you in India? Which part of India? I don't know. Like, I don't want to recommend something that could like lead to your safety being jeopardized, and then I have to be accountable for it. But I guess an advice that I could give that is pretty safe is just be as nice and friendly as possible. Buy gifts, meet them with gifts, show up with sweets. Is that it? Oh, make sure, yeah, show up with sweets and flowers. That's a safe. Guys, do you think that's a good advice? Because I would just want to make sure that I'm not giving you any advice that could potentially make things worse. Okay, but I think like showing up with gifts would leave a very good impression. Okay, so you're saying I'm a Sudanese American. We're all in America. Okay, you're in America. Um, yeah, I think this advice will be work anywhere you are. You want to meet the parents of the girl you love, and you want to leave a good impression. Show up with gifts. Show up with sweets. What do you guys think? Do you think that's a good idea? Yeah, somebody's saying good one. I think that would leave a really good impression. They're like, oh my god, this one is a keeper. Oh yeah, Oxymoron is giving a good advice. Also ask some advice from her. Yeah, ask some advice from her as well. See what she thinks. So you're saying she's a practicing Hindu and her parents aren't? Okay, so that should make it easier. The fact that they are not. Do you think you being an ex-Muslim atheist, the fact that you have a background in Islam, do you think they will hold that against you? Hey, wait a minute. I was an ex-Muslim atheist that was dating a Hindu once. I remember um, she was not a practicing Hindu, but it was a little bit like you, but it's a little bit different. So she was not a practicing Hindu, but her family were. So I had the opposite situation than you. Okay, so you're saying they are Hindu. Okay, so I'm an ex-Muslim atheist, and the family wanted to make sure I'm not Muslim. That was like the only thing they cared about. They didn't care about anything else. That was the most important thing. Okay. So the mother, especially, she asked me multiple times if I'm a Muslim. And I was like, no, I'm not. And she also was wondering if I'm going to go back to Islam ever. And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, they were like, are you sure about that? Because that was an issue for them, right? So, but I was very nice. I was very sweet to them, and they liked me because of it. I used to drive her mother around sometimes, so she warmed up to me. Oh, um, one thing that Hindu families like doing a lot is they like to cook food for you, and sometimes letting people do something for you makes them like you a lot. So just when you're eating their food, just make sure you tell them how amazing the food is, okay? And just tell the mom that she's an amazing cook. That usually works a lot, okay? If you ever eat her mom's food, tell her that her food is freaking amazing, that she is an amazing cook, and maybe she should look into opening a restaurant. Okay. That is a compliment that mothers in traditional family would very, very, very much enjoy. Okay. Yeah. So Shake is on Twitch. Shaky is confirming, like, yes, tell them how good the food is. That is a compliment that they're going to remember. Yeah, so Mustafa is saying, yes, I know from here they have negative views against Muslims and atheists. And atheists? Oh, okay. So your work is difficult because the family that I was dating, they only had a negative view against Muslims. They were happy that I'm not a Muslim. They were like, I don't care. They didn't care that I'm an atheist, a Hindu, a Christian. They didn't care about any of that. As long as I was not a Muslim, that's the only thing they cared about. So your job is difficult. Okay, they don't like atheists either. Okay, don't do this. I was thinking. I was thinking. Would they enjoy it if you start bashing Islam? Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm just kidding. But it would be funny if they could if we could bond with them over how bad Islam is. They're like, oh yeah, this guy is cool. It's like he hates Islam like us. No, don't do that. Don't do that. No, don't do that either. Don't. Okay. Guys, this was a family I used to date. Like, this was my ex. It's not somebody who I'm dating right now. Okay, next question. What do you consider a spiritual experience to be, and have you experienced something similar? Okay, it depends on what you mean spiritual. I had moments of deep thought or awe, moments of that inspired a sense of awe within me, moments where I looked at things in nature or in my own thought that I felt like I'm transcending my, you know, whatever my thoughts were before then. I don't know. Things that made me feel like I'm in touch with my environment in a way that I can't even explain. But none of this is supernatural, right? So I have experienced those moments, whether it's because I don't know, I tried meditation, or whether because I was in the middle of something in nature, and a moment, a wind, or like just sitting in the bushes, and a moment like the cloud goes away and the sun shines upon you and the grasses, and there's a moment where something clicks in you and you just notice everything, every smell, every movement, and you just feel like you're experiencing something that you can't even explain. I have experienced that. I've experienced, sometimes reading a piece of poetry or something that all of a sudden touched you in a way that you can't even explain. Also, in Amsterdam, I tried something that I'm not going to explain on YouTube. That also was something that I think people refer to as spiritual. I'm not going to tell what I did, but yeah, because I think YouTube doesn't like it. But it was in Amsterdam, so I think you know what I'm talking about. Um, but all of these different they're all awe-inspiring. They're not similar, but I think all of these different feelings that I had is what other people sometimes refer to as spiritual, but I know that none of them had anything to do with supernatural. I think all of them was just like think chemicals in my brain changing, um or something like that at that time. It was very enjoyable, and I think I know how to trigger it again anytime I want to. But yeah, I mean, I think it's something that is accessible to anybody that wants it without any religious mumbo jumbo. No, not that one. Okay, the things that I did in Amsterdam are things that are not harmful to your body, okay? Okay. Hey, this guy is spamming. This Mudio Akbar guy, let's block him. Bye bye. Oh, no, music guy already deleted his message. Okay, music guy already took. Thank you for admitting the live chat. Okay, Higgs boson is saying, I think Central Asia is having some proto-Turkic belief. Now some in Turkey are also coming to think. Yeah, I don't know. I have to look into them. I know there's a whole bunch of regions in Central, like from Turkey all the way to Turkmenistan and Azerbaijan, and all these like areas, and even in Tajikistan, they all have different versions of Turkish or Turkish-ish um, ethnicities, and um, and some people, both Turkish separatists and Turkey itself, is trying to use it as a leverage to increase its soft power in the region. I think like Turkey is like stepping up its game to notice like how other, like Iran does that with the Persian ethnicity and the Persian language outside of its borders. So Iran is like actually waking up to this game as well, right? So Iran was usually, ever since the revolution, was using Shiaism as a way to, and in Shia rich areas, to increase their soft power. But in the past couple of years, is now playing the ethnic game as well, and using the Persian tribe, and also the Persian language as a way to spread its soft power in Afghanistan and Syria and Lebanon, which is interesting. This is a new thing they're doing, which is beyond. It's the ethnic game instead of the religion game. China does that very effectively. Um, India does that with its tries to do demographic engineering when it comes to tribes and language and stuff like that. And I think I've seen Turkey and some separatists now do that, because they know, if you notice, like there's there's many areas outside of Turkey where people have this shared ethnicity and culture with Turkey, and Turkey is like, we need to get on that and start thinking about like using that as a semi soft power empire, right? Not just like hard power. Like a lot of people are mentioning that how Turkey is trying to bring back the Ottoman Empire through military might, which is now seems to be a lot more difficult than before, given how much their currency has been devalued. But it's also a soft power game around this whole area north of Iran, below Russia and northeast of Iran. You could be like all of that could be like a Turkish, you know, soft power region. Like the problem is that there's areas in between where there's no Turkish influence at all. So connecting them all this together will be difficult. I mean, this was the whole conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Was like, I don't know, Turkey also coming in and trying to fill in this gap and connect different Turkish parts together, right? To flex its muscle both militarily, but also using Turkish ethnicity as an excuse to do all of that, right? So yeah, I mean, if you could ever create, it looks like ages away from ever you being able to do that, but theoretically, if you could play that, because it's not that strong, right? This whole idea of like being, a pan-Turkish pride or cause is not that strong in all of these areas. But what I know where that exists the strongest as a moving force is in the Azerbaijan province, not the Azerbaijan country, but the Azerbaijan province in Iran, where it's using the Turkish identity as a way to try to promote separatist movement as a reason. The whole idea of the province having the name Azerbaijan, which is the same as the country right next to it, has more also leads into this game of like, we need to be part of that country, right? This is also why in Iran, a lot of people who are extremely anti these separatist movements want to deny them their Turkish identity, just like they deny the Arab identity of the Arabs in Iran, by telling them both that they're not Arabs or Turks, that they are Persian by ethnicity, which such a thing I think doesn't exist, but they say it anyway. And they just speak Arabic. So just because your language has been, the Arabic language or the Turkish language has been forced upon you, that doesn't mean that your ethnicity has changed. And these are people who care about ethnicities. I'm just telling you what they believe. I don't care about it at all myself. So for example, the Turks in Iran, the people who want to avoid separatist movements from growing, they say you're not Turks, you're Azeris, and you just speak Turkish language. You speak the language of our enemies, and you should stop. Which is again not my words. And they say Azeri has deep rooted, heritage in Iranian tradition, and it has nothing to do with the Turks. And the only reason why you speak Turkish is because we were invaded, and this is the language of the enemy, or Arabic, the language of the enemy that has been imposed on you, and your identity is Azeri, not Turk. So many Turks are like, no, you're denying my Turkish heritage. I am Turkish. Stop calling me an Azeri. Anyways, these are very complicated stuff. Does that make sense? Anybody, if you're interested in these stuff more, I could talk about it more on the Secular Jihadist channel. Okay, Count Dracula is saying, what advice would you give to an ex-Muslim who wants to come out to his parents yet but doesn't know how? It really depends on your parents. Are your parents conservative? Would be open to it? Would they be open to it? Like, where do you live? Do you financially depend on your parents? Right. So I think, like, depending on how harsh your family are, your parents are, you might want to do two things. You might want to test it out by asking them questions about their beliefs instead of saying anything about yours, and see how they react to it. Like, just poke at it a little bit and just see what reactions you're gonna get, right? Just to be able to maybe ease into it. If you think it's not something that is welcome, maybe take a couple of years to take a step-by-step process to introduce this to them. Again, it really depends on where you are. In some places this might not be very safe at all, and maybe you shouldn't be doing it at all. It also is important for you to understand what is your goal. Do you even need to do this? Do you have, like, why are you doing this? Are you doing this because it's important for you to be honest with your parents, like, so just communicating with yourself and understanding the motivation that you have for telling your parents might also help you. it Depending on how supportive your parents are going to be, it might be very important for you to first you try to gain financial independence before you even start even trying to address any of this with your parents, right? And just so that they don't have control over you, and you could, you could provide for yourself. Maybe for a lot of people, uh it might be wise to wait for that, right? Before, but again, it depends on so many different factors, and you have to think about all of these. I do suggest um maybe getting in touch with other people who have had these experiences where you are at, like in the country that you are in, and also with people who have had, if you have conservative parents, maybe talk to people who came out to conservative parents. I mean, if you have liberal parents, I'm assuming this is not going to be as difficult, right? Why is somebody posting one question like a million times in the live chat? Who is this person? Okay, I'm going to put you. Okay, guys, if you post the same thing like multiple times, I'm going to put you on timeout. What the hell? Okay, never mind. Don't do that again. All right. David the Goliath is saying, what do you think about Genghis Khan and his invasion of Iran? Why did the Mongols convert to Islam in Iran? Well, I mean, it was the most brutal invasion in history of mankind, I think, both percentage-wise and total number-wise. I mean, not just the Iran part, but the whole thing by Genghis Khan. I think, like, his invasions of China and Iran and everything in between was the most significant mass murder and genocide in history, right? Like, even it did, like World War II, and Stalin and Adolf together can't even hold a light to what Genghis Khan did. Again, not even percentage wise, even total number wise. It's incredible how that man managed to kill so many people without the modern weaponry. Like Stalin and Adolf couldn't kill that many people, even though they had machine guns, tanks, and planes. And even though there were way more people back in their time, Genghis Khan still managed to kill more people just using horses, arrows, and swords. It's unbelievable. Like there are studies that suggest that he killed so many people that the planet Earth cooled because of it. It's insane. And another thing that is insane about it is that even though a lot of his targets were Muslims, and he killed a lot of Muslims, including Iranians, Muslim respected a lot of Muslims back then kind of respected him. Again, not all, but a lot of them, because back then Muslims, including other people, respected power. They respected strength, right? So if somebody was, especially like with the Sunni ideology, they saw God on the side of the victor. So somebody who managed to come and just wipe out half of the, just invade half of the known world like that, they kind of saw there must be something on his side that he's able to do that. So it was because of the respect that the Sunni ideology has for strength. There was a certain respect. Even the people who were his victims, they had a certain amount of respect for him, which is kind of weird. And also the Mongols themselves were not very strict on their ideology. So your question is like, why did the Mongols convert to Islam in Iran? For the same reason that they converted to Taoists and Buddhists in other areas. They were more pragmatic. They were very pragmatic, right? So they would just take the brand of the ideology of the place that they were in to be able to be more effective at ruling it. So they became Muslims in Iran, and they became Buddhists in other places. Or Taoists. There's sometimes competitions between which ideology they were taking. There were some Mongols that were, became Sunni, and then Shia, and then I think there was one guy that was like, I don't know, Buddhist, Sunni, Shia, back to Sunni, and then I don't know what at the end. They're like some weird. But they weren't very strict about what ideology they need to take. I think they were just like changing color with their as they took places. They just became like the people that they invaded. But another interesting thing is that a lot of Iranians who want to pretend like even though Iran was defeated militarily, there's this Iranian spirit that always comes on top victorious, because when people get defeated, it's a demoralizing. And as somebody who might want to have like an Iranian pride, you want to keep pretending like, even in defeat, we're somehow victorious. And one way of doing that is to show how the Iranian identity, or as they use it interchangeably and shouldn't be actually, the Persian culture manages to defeat the soft power of the people who have invaded Iran always, and it always comes on top. Like they're like the Mongol. So they say Alexander came and invaded Iran, and he was Persianized, right? So he crushed us militarily, but the Persian spirit, the Persian identity was never defeated. And instead of Iran becoming Hellenized, Alexander became Persianized, right? Which is technically true, but again, this is what you tell yourself, remind yourself as a way to come out. Like there's this great Ahura Mazda, always protecting the Iranian line, no matter who comes at it. Like they're like, no, Iran is not weak. Look how Iran is strong, because through all these invasions, it managed to keep its identity. So Alexander, they give an example of Alexander. Um, and then they give you the example of the Mughals. The Mughals came. The Mongols came. Yeah, the Mongols are kind of like were from the Mongols. I meant the Mongols. The Mongols came and they invaded Iran. Um, the way we say it in Persian is Mughal. So and they became Islamic. They became like the Persians, and eventually, and also the Arabs before the Mongols, the Arabs invaded Iran, and they were Persianized as well, right? So they're like unlike Lebanon or Syria or Egypt. Like they say, look at Egypt. The Arabs invaded Egypt, and Egypt was Arabized. But they're like in Iran, it's the opposite. The Arabs invaded Iran. Instead of Iran becoming Arabized, the Arabs ruling over Iran, they became Persianized. Again, I'm not saying all of these claims are accurate at all the time. I'm just giving you the narrative some people use as a way to cope with defeat. Yeah, so no, I'm agreeing. The Iranians got defeated by Greeks, Mongols, and Arabs, but they claim that their identity is always the winning. They're like the soft power. They claim that there's this supernatural um, guardian of the Iranian land that no matter how much you defeat it, that spirit always lives on, and that spirit always crushes the forces, the soft power of enemy, the identity that is trying to come and dominate the Iranians' identity. They claim that that is never defeated. In fact, not only all these defeats not only it doesn't show that the Iranians are weak, it shows how strong they are, because no matter what empire comes in, they are never able to maintain their dominance over the Iranian culture and identity. And again, this is just I'm not saying any of this is true. I'm just saying this is the coping mechanism that they have. Yeah, so here's another thing. Like the oxymoron is saying, yeah, I mean, this is confirms what I'm saying. Oxymoron is saying the Mongols didn't want to identify with the Mongol ancestors for their brutality. They stressed on their Persian identity. So the fact that they had um, Mongol roots, but they wanted to stress on the Persian identity, a lot of Persians were like, that shows the superiority of the Persian identity. So a lot of Persians were like, look, they think like they defeated, like they come and take us, but then we take them from within, right? So a lot of Persians like, if you feel like you took us, but we destroy your identity, we destroy who you are and change your identity from inside out. And this example is kind of, they say, is one of those. It's like it's a trap, like, you know, it's like a virus. You come and take it, and it just like destroys you from within. Oh, Shakib is saying this is so similar to what Hindus think too. We have been invaded, but we're still able to keep Hinduism alive. This is how powerful Hinduism is. Okay. Oh, you see, like this is a coping. Countries that constantly get defeated and get captured by other people. This is the coping mechanism that I guess they use all the time. Like, no, we're still strong. Don't tell us we're weak. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Music guy has been saying it better than I am. They were absorbed culturally. Yes. Exactly. Okay. I think I answered that one. No, this is the same question. Oxymar is saying, I think Russia won't become a liberal democracy. It goes against the interests of American military industrial complex. Not many will remain in NATO for Russia unless US wants Europe destabilized. Okay, I know that the military industrial complex is influential, but you guys have to understand that when it comes to wealth and money to be made, um, the U.S. military industrial complex does not have the final say. There's more money to be made for business tycoons in peace than it is in war. And all those other giant companies that would be benefiting from peace also have a lot of say in pushing politics in the direction that they want as well. Okay. So, because a lot of people think like the direction of, because of the military industrial complex, I think that there's this assumption that the influence of money is always going to be in the direction of war. But there's more money that is going to push, that is going to try to influence politics in the direction of democracy and peace and prosperity, because the net effect of peace and prosperity is more money than war itself. Okay, I answered this one. This question was asked like a gazillion times. Okay, 4 more questions and then I'm gone. Okay, Secular Sekai, I have not heard of this. So, nope, I have no idea. Sorry. Arjun is saying, isn't I think you mean, isn't it unfair to American people that their tax money is being used on protecting other countries? No, because the American people have to realize that the world stability that is possible through the protection the United States provides around the world benefits them dramatically. Like, dramatically, no, drastically. What did I say? A lot. So, like, for example, let's say United States spends money on providing security in the Pacific region, and you're like, what the, around China, like, tries to bring countries like, I don't know, Japan, South Korea, and like, okay, we're telling Japan, Vietnam, and South Korea, like, guys, we're gonna be here, like, China is bullying you, but we're around here and we're gonna make sure that you guys have United States Army on your side. So as an American citizen, you might say like, what the hell? Why is our military, our taxpayer money being spent over there? We could spend this money over here and build stuff. But okay, so first of all, trade routes are a thing. Trade routes are very important, and protecting them. If you lose control over them, the Americans at home are going to feel the significance of that being controlled by other countries like China, right? I think the entire international world order benefits from United States influence and its contribution to maintaining international law and being able to create a peace and stability for, especially for the trade routes. Without United States contribution, this peace and stability would make trade and economic trade and international agreements a lot more difficult, and everybody would suffer, including the American people, right? So imagine if you didn't, that area all of a sudden, without United States contribution, as an example, was dominated by China, and China could have easily blocked trade routes and used its wolf warrior diplomacy to decide that, oh, we're going to block this, we're going to block that, because of our, not because of it's beneficial to them or anybody else trade wise, but because of their political ambitions. I mean, American citizens will feel the increase in price, the very significant increase in price in their products from that. So I think that needs to be communicated to people, how important it is. I mean, the only way you could fix it is to promote the economy and democracy in other countries, so the United States is not contributing this much relative to other countries. You know what I mean? Right now, without United States contribution, the world liberal order does not have a significant backing for it to continue. If we want one country to not be so high in its contribution to relative to others in maintaining the world liberal order, we have to continue helping other countries' economy grow significantly, so their level of contribution increases. It's not, we can't, like, we want the United States to slowly uh, have a relatively less contribution next compared to other countries, but we can't do that very fast. We want Europe's contribution to grow, and we want other countries, and we want Japan's contribution to grow. We want South Korea's contribution to grow, and we want, one day, we're hoping India's contribution to grow. We want India to start, hopefully, take the side of world liberal democracies rather than playing the middleman in between, I don't know, China, Russia on one, not China, Russia on one side, and these other. I mean, I'm hoping. I mean, India's contribution being, India is hopefully is going to eventually move more closer to the West because of his fear from China, and also because Russia becoming so pathetically weak and destroyed, and not being a relatively worthy ally compared to what United States could be. I'm hoping India, because India is a country that it will be a superpower at some point in history, right? So I'm hoping that India will take the side of liberal democracies at some point and just abandons Russia as a major ally, especially because of how big of a threat China is, right, to India's political ambitions in the region. Okay, so I see Oxymoron is here. I'm just going to answer 2 more questions very quick, and then I'm going to bring Oxymoron on, and that would be it. So let me just delete the link. Oxymoron, just give me a second. I'll just answer 2 questions, and then I'll bring you right up. Okay. David is asking, why are Iranian Muslims less radical than, let's say, Pakistani and North African Muslims? Is it because of Iran having a continuous history before Islam? I mean, I don't think that Iranian Muslims are less radical. I just think the radicalism of, okay, so they all have their own percentage of radicals, and liberal Muslims and moderate Muslims and non-Muslims and nominal Muslims. There's so many different kinds of Muslims. Okay, so the radical Muslims in Iran, I think they actually have contribute relatively a higher amount of. I mean, I don't know. Iran is the greatest sponsor of terror in the world right now. So I don't know why you think like they have less radicals. Maybe you have been exposed to. I think people outside of Iran get exposed mostly to liberal-minded Iranians, because liberal-minded Iranians are leave Iran on a relatively higher percentage compared to other Iranians, right? So Iranians outside of Iran are relatively more liberal compared to, as a percentage wise, compared to Iranians in Iran. But there's a lot of very hardcore radical Iranians. But there's 2 things. Okay, first of all, one thing one reason why you might not notice them is because they already have their theocracy. So there's not much for a lot of them. They have their Islamic regime that they want. So there's no sense into doing, for a lot of them, the same level of radical activities that you would if you wanted to bring about a theocracy, because you already have a theocracy. But also, a lot of the radical things that they do, I mean, right now, if you actually look at the terror activities in the name of Islam, most of them are being done by Iran on behalf of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Maybe the reason why you don't notice them is because a lot of them is happening in the Middle East to other Muslims. So that's what doesn't get much attention. But also a lot of them is happening in Europe. But one reason why you don't notice them is because they have been successfully stopped, especially by Mossad. Thank you, Mossad. But if those attacks had went through, they would have been devastating, and maybe you would have thought, like, if those attacks were successful right now, you wouldn't have this impression that Iranian radicals are less radical. So it's mostly based on what people see on the news. And the radical attacks that are successful because they're happening in the Middle East, you don't notice them, and the ones that were supposed to happen in Europe didn't. So maybe you come up with this impression that there's less radicalism from Iranian Muslims. But I would argue that based on what I have seen, there's actually more, not less. Yeah. Anyways, Musad, I'm available for hire in case you need my services. Last question before I bring Oxymoron up. Sid is saying, why did Iran lose so easily to Arabs? If Iranians had won, Islam would not have existed. I don't know if you could say Iran would have not exist, but the main two reasons why Iran lost, the Persian Empire lost to the Arab invaders was two main reasons. One, years of fighting, years of war between the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire, right, has made both of their resources depleted to a degree that neither of them had the ability to defend themselves as much as before. That's why it wasn't just the Persian Empire that fell completely. The Roman Empire also lost heavily to the Arab invaders. Like both, the Arabs started attacking both the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire at a perfect time for them, because they were both exhausted from wars with each other. They both had exhausted all their resources in fighting each other, and actually maybe the perfect timing for their Arab attacks on the empire had something. It wasn't by luck. The reason why it might have collided at the same time with the time that it was because the Arabs who invaded the Roman and Persian Empire, who attacked the Persian and Roman Empire, they were probably also very shocked about how successful they were at just taking city after city. I mean, these are empires and you're nomads, and they weren't like, they just attacked probably just to get some, loots or something, but they're just like, oh, well, let's just keep going. These cities are like falling like flies, so why not just go all the way, right? But the reason why they might have started their attacks is because they weren't getting paid, because the Arab nomads were used as proxies by both the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire against each other, right? So there were a whole bunch of Arab tribes that used to get money from the Persian Empire, and there are Arab tribes that were used to getting money from the Roman Empire as proxies against each other, because so the Arab proxies that were working for Persians, they were acting against the Roman Empire on behalf of the Persian Empire, and vice versa. So all this money going to the Arab nomads for these proxy fights made this a very reliable source of income for them, and it also made them very effective at warfare, because that was their job. But at some point, the money stopped coming because the Persian and Roman Empire were, their resources were depleted. And maybe the reason why the attack happened at the same time, where it was a good time to attack, is because they were like, what the hell, where's our money? And because they relied on that money and that money wasn't coming, so they needed to start, and they felt like they needed to start invading city to be able to use the loot as a way to replace the money that they used to get from the empires, right? So the fact that it happened at the perfect time where they couldn't defend themselves was probably not by accident, right? So that's the first reason. And also the second reason was plague, right? Plague and disease had affected both the Persian Empire and the Roman Empire significantly, but it had not affected the Arabs because they didn't live in big cities, right? They lived in the desert. And as you know, plagues affects cities and major, areas where people are gathering all together. The Persian Empire and the Roman Empire really felt the effect of the plague. And the Arabs were like, what plague? They're like, they didn't we didn't even notice you're having a plague. Right? So because they were like, yeah, they didn't live in crowded areas next to each other. Okay, so that's the and the effects of the plague made it very difficult. You know, really also depleted the resources of both the Roman and Persian Empire. Okay, let's bring Oxy. Hey,
Hello,
Oxymon. Hey, how are
hi.
you?
How are you doing?
Good,
I'm
good.
great. Okay. I wanted to put my thoughts about this Russia thing, the military industrial complex and Russia.
Okay.
Are you hearing me fine?
Yes, I'm hearing you fine. Tell me.
Okay. So there are not just interest of military industrial complex of US in the European region, but also of economy. Uh, if
Also, what?
ec- uh, just in general economic interest of US to keep Russia away from Europe. You say this Russia is a huge thing. It has a lot of resources. It is actually very big power, and if the trade starts, then there will be it acts like a bridge between China, Europe, and Russia. China, Europe, and Asia. Russia kind of
Okay.
acts like. So there, it also has a lot of minerals. If and dependency that it could sustain Europe by itself as
Okay.
economy. So it actually kind of makes sense to uh, keep clear Russia away from the rest of the Europe for
Okay.
United
I,
States to remain relevant beyond
I
interest of military industrial complex.
okay. The way right now that the world economy is intermingled. Okay. I think a lot of people think like one country like suffering and being removed from the equation might benefit the interests of some other countries, but the world economy doesn't work like that. Okay, this is how a lot of people assumed. It's mostly a win-win situation. Like um the everything is so connected with each other that the success of every country is actually helpful to the success of all other countries as well. So this theory of yours, it shows that how wrong it is, given that how the world is suffering right now. Like even Russia suffering even a little bit, the whole world is feeling it. Like grain prices are going up, inflations are going up, energy prices are going up. I don't think it's true like that the world would benefit from isolating Russia economically, right? This is just a price that we have to pay right now for supporting democratic values and international laws. But economically, it's not in the favor. It's not within the interest of anybody for Russia to suffer economically. Like for example, I give you an example. A lot of people think like China and United States are um you know economic enemies, but nothing could be farther from the truth. United States benefits heavily from Chinese success, and China benefits heavily economically from United States success. All these countries are invested within each other, and when it comes to economic interests, all these major industries and business tycoons want are more in favor of peace and war, because that's where you make the money, and they all would be interested in seeing the other side also success. There's very few scenarios where if a certain industry succeeds because the competition has been eliminated. You couldn't find examples of that. But if you look at the net effect of things, if you let trade happen, and if you stop war and you have stability, the positive effect of that will result in most people benefiting, including rich and powerful people.
Mm. I think that it won't affect it will affect US in a way that it will become irrelevant. There's no the need of dependency of uh, Europe on USA will decrease significantly if they merge together, right from gas to need of minerals, or there will be industrialization in Asia because Europe and Asia are connected. in geographically. America is very distant from them, so the cost wouldn't make sense for it. So to keep relevance, US has to maintain a certain kind of distance from not letting Russia become a liberal democracy in that sense. It will
I
keep.
think I don't know. I think it's the other way around. I think okay, so I think like they have to isolate Russia because it's not a liberal democracy. It's not that they're isolating Russia so that it doesn't. I think it's the other way around. I think if Russia was a liberal democracy, it would have been a very helpful ally to United States. You know what I mean? United States benefits from more countries being liberal democracies because liberal democracies have been proven to be very powerful and helpful allies to United States. You know what I mean?
Ally against whom? But
Against
if
any country
everyone,
that is not against countries that are not. I mean, if every country becomes a secular democracy and there's no instability or war, and there's peace between all countries, then there's a whole bunch of money to be. There's more money to be made in cooperation than it is in war.
no. Somebody has to lose for somebody to remain relevant.
No,
It's
that's
kind
not
of
that's not the case. You know, the world, the way economy works, it's not like the way the wealth of nations are. It's not like a limited amount that you have. The only way for you to gain is for other people to lose. Because of productivity and technology, you could increase the wealth. So everybody could win. Like if you study how economy works, it's not necessary for some people to lose for other people to gain. In fact, you could gain more when everybody is gaining.
no, but it's about the spectrum. Some would gain less, some would gain more. So that changes a lot of dynamics.
Yeah, but
Uh,
even if some people are gaining less and some people are gaining more, if the people who are gaining less made more, it would be in the best interest of everybody.
yeah, but look, I think the interest come before economic interests come before value. But US does become irrelevant in this picture if Europe and Asia again become one huge unit.
US will become what?
Kind of irrelevant.
Okay, but here's the thing: United States benefits from being less relevant if the less relevancy comes from other country becoming more powerful.
Yeah.
You know, so like, so if United States relative power is being less, not because it's suffering, but because of other countries becoming more powerful, that's not bad for United States. That's good for United States
No, but
because
then it would be like a very multipolar world. Mm,
yeah,
it
but that would
doesn't
be
fit the
good.
culture.
But that would be good for United States because these other rich countries will have more money to buy stuff. Like it's not necessarily always within your best interest to have a high relative power next compared to other people. In fact, if other secular democracies become so powerful that the relative power next to you is higher, then you wouldn't have to contribute so much of your tax money to maintain the world liberal order. Other countries that are also now a lot more powerful could carry some of this weight. This is good for United States for other countries, other secular democracies' relative power to increase. Is good for United States, not bad for United States.
But it hampers USA's economy because
Huh?
as of now, yeah, gas is a very superficial example of this. But as potential, if everything is the whole Europe and Asia gets interlinked, what would be their need for resources? What would be their contribution to economy of
I,
Europe and Asia? They will miss out on the whole market of Europe and Asia.
no, but they will gain. Okay, when if Russia and Europe become richer, there's more opportunities to be made from selling stuff to them, including for Americans.
I don't see how because the geographical distance changes a lot of things. It's
No,
just far away.
geographical. Geographical. This trade is like, I don't know if you've seen how trade. Like, first of all, there's a lot of services that countries sell to each other. There's a lot of financial products, service products. Also, the distance in today's economy, distance is mattering less and less. I don't know. United States is already so far away from Europe and Asia, and it's still like major trading allies with Europe and China. Like China and United States are major trading allies. Russia is trade allies with countries that are very far away from it. Like, I don't know if this is not as big of a barrier as you think. I just think that when there's more wealth in the world, everybody benefits. There's when every country, any country that is becomes more economically powerful, that will spread out of its country, and the entire world benefits, including its political enemies.
Okay. Let's take oil for example. India buys oil from generally UAE or Saudi Arabia because they are very close to India. So even if United sells oil for far lesser cheaper price, it can't buy oil because the transportation
Right.
costs would be huge. So
Yes.
that
So
would be so.
if you focus on certain industries, okay, I agree with you that you will see interest moving in one direction. It might be in the direction of more conflict, especially if you think about the oil industry and the military industry. Okay, but you have to zoom in on certain industries for you to get a conclusion like that. I'm talking about all industries and all trade and all economies together. If you consider all of them together, right? If you add all of the net effect together, there's a lot more money to be made in peace and stability, and United States significantly benefits from powerful secular democracies. You could see that from what happened after World War II with Germany and Japan, right? Germany and Japan were American enemies. They turned into secular democracies, and now United States really relies on them as powerful allies. United States has a huge experience in noticing how countries that have turned into secular democracies have ended up being hugely in its favor as powerful allies, right? The main mistake United States did with Germany after, well, with actually, so the main problem with Russia after the Cold War is that they defeated communism, but they didn't include Russia as much as they could in the big boys table for it to become part of the world secular democracy. The same mistake that the Western powers did with Germany after World War One, right? So if you look at after World War One, Germany was punished and humiliated instead of trying to fix and rebuild it and bring it to a place where it could join the benefits of countries getting together and cooperating with each other. And that's why World War One, partially why World War One led to World War Two, right? But after World War Two, the defeated countries were included in the cooperation and the rebuilding and trade and democracy, and the results was Japan and Germany turned into some of the world's greatest economies. Instead of like being punished and humiliated and isolated, they were invited to be part of the big boys table, and you see the results was huge. So the same lessons should have been made after the Cold War, when the Soviet Union was defeated. They it the corruption remained there. All the oligarchy remained there because the incentive into bringing Russia in as part of the liberal world order was not as strong as it should have been. And I hope that this time, as if Russia also is defeated one more time, I hope a post Putin era we could learn from these mistakes and open the door to the Russian economy and to rebuilding Russia and into truly turning it into world secular democracy, because experience and history has shown that has benefited other secular democracies like United States, Canada, West Europe, Japan, and South Korea and Australia. It benefits them all to add more people to the team,
Mm,
and
okay.
India hopefully one day.
India will actually align with NATO sometime, but just not now.
Good, good, good. I have a lot.
Uh,
I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic. One benefit of one benefit of China being anti-India is that it helps push India into the direction of the world liberal order. So thank you, China, for bringing India closer to us. And again, the fall of Russia also helps get India into the liberal team as well. So this
yeah.
is great.
But
Yeah.
actually, Russia kind of wanted to join NATO at some point of time. Yeah, even
Yes,
in
it should have been.
Putin's
It should have been.
presidency.
That was a mistake. That was a mistake. It should have been.
I
It,
think it
it
was calculation because they said that the values were different and all that, but they aligned
yeah,
with Pakistan. So,
that
which
was a
is
mistake.
also, so it would have been possible. So, maybe this
Yeah.
was the reason because
Yeah.
is based on economy, probably.
Okay, so I agree. Sometimes no, it's okay. So, no, so the reason why these good decisions are not made is because the best interest for the economy is not always the calculation. Sometimes politics gets in the way of economy. Sometimes political motivations takes precedent over what is the best economic interest. And I think that's what the calculations. That's why the bad calculations are made.
Probably. Let's
Mhm.
see. I think I
Okay.
will have to think over it.
Okay, okay, okay. All right. Thank you
Okay,
for
bye.
your thank you. All right. All right, guys, that was the end of today's Q&A. We are rescheduling this week's news. I'm going to make a post because Susanna has some obligations so we have to change the time. So on the community tab, we're going to show you when the news coverage is going to be, but also make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell notification so that if we have to sometimes change when we're going to go live with the news, you can see YouTube notifies you when we are live. Okay, so subscribing is not enough. You need to subscribe and also hit the bell notifications so that you are so that if there's any change, make sure you like the video so that our YouTube channel grows. Make sure you leave a comment, and thank you for all of you for being here. Secular Rarity saying it was a great stream. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry that Susanna was not here today. I hope I did relatively okay work, even without Susanna, but I know Susanna will be back at some point, so don't worry about it. It's not gonna I haven't yeah, okay, yes. And music guy saying everyone liked the stream, and yeah, goodbye and see you guys later. Bye bye.